blamed for at least one death and damage to homes and vehicles. The flooding has also caused a huge sinkhole in the county. And now fears of the Chattahoochee cresting has forced the Georgia DOT to shut down I-85 near the Alabama-Georgia line. 11 Alive's Keith Whitney joins us with more. Keith?
Well, Brenda, to give you perspective, this is I-85, and despite the occasional car and truck headed down here, it is closed to all but local traffic, and they will all be forced off at the LaGrange exit about 10 miles down the road. Now, everyone else is taking the exit to I-185 to make that long end around over the Chattahoochee. Tonight, draped beneath a gossamer white blanket of evening mist, the Chattahoochee River rages quietly over its banks in Troup County. But cresting at the beams of the bridges of I-85, this scene is not pretty as a picture.
As soon as we get the word, I'll shut it down.
By 9 o'clock, DOT workers were preparing to shut the interstate down along with the exits, just in case the danger from flooding became too great. With some of the exits in the area flooded as well, many local residents were literally stranded on the highway, miles from home with no alternative but to walk.
It flooded down there on 10th Street down there.
Right.
So we're having to get off right here on 85 and climb up the bridge to get home.
How far away is that?
3 miles.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay.
Be careful.
All right. Okay.
Now, DOT says the water poses a serious threat to the integrity of the bridge, and they're not sure at this hour precisely when that section of I-85 will reopen. Live in LaGrange, Keith Whitney, 11 Alive News tonight.
All right, thank you, Keith. Meanwhile, the flooding in Troup County was so severe that Governor Perdue toured the area to inspect the damage there. 11 Alive's Walt Macaborski talked to the governor during his flyover this afternoon. Walt?
Brenda, all eyes are on the Chattahoochee and the West Point Dam. The National Weather Service says this is the worst flooding in West Point since 1961, and it's not over yet. Inch by inch, the mucky, muddy waters of the Chattahoochee, mixed with sewage, slowly swallows the town of West Point. Some people risked the ride across the Highway 29 bridge that disappeared under several feet of water. Some business owners had no choice but to shut down.
We closed at 4 o'clock due to the concern, the safety of the people and to get our employees home.
Has the water been creeping up ever since?
Ever since.
Emergency crews still didn't know if things were going to get better or worse.
We're having a hard time deciding how to evacuate, where to evacuate, until we can get a handle on where the water level is going down here. And the biggest factor in determining that is the Army Corps telling us how much water they're going to let out of the dam.
Governor Sonny Perdue toured the flooding scene from the air. I talked with him exclusively from his helicopter as he surveyed the damage. What are your thoughts with what you see out here today?
Well, obviously, it's always sad to see people's homes flooded. We are trying to talk with the Corps to determine when the inflow may stop coming into West Point. At this time, there's still more inflow than they're letting out, and they're concerned about the integrity of the dam.
Now, the releases from West Point Dam are key tonight. They expected the Chattahoochee to crest at about 24 feet at 8 o'clock, but that was at 8 o'clock, and they are reevaluating tonight at the 11 o'clock hour. They'll have to wait and worry overnight to see what the Chattahoochee decides to do, especially upstream as it heads into the West Point Dam. Reporting live near Troup County, Walt Macaborski, 11 Alive News tonight.
All right, some anxious hours ahead tonight. Walt, thanks very much.
Folks in Coweta County spent today clearing trees tossed into their homes, yards, and cars. The sound of chainsaws chattered throughout the Summer Grove subdivision in Noonan for much of the day. Residents assessed the damage the wind to the trees had caused, as well as the damage the trees did to their homes. Some folks were trapped by the debris, but thankfully, no one was injured.
And keep potential looters away from flood victims and their families.
And as we know, there's a place for people to stay if they want to leave their homes or feel that they're threatened and need somewhere to go.
Gee, that's right. If anyone still does need a place to stay, they can go to an emergency shelter, which is set up at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church right in Smith Station. But we're told that there's actually no one there right now, that all of the flood victims fortunately had relatives or friends that they could stay with.
The same thing happened up in Harris County. Everybody staying with somebody else. They had a shelter up there, and they closed that down tonight, too. Kristen DePaulo live from Columbus tonight. Thank you, Kristen.
Randolph County, Alabama has been declared a disaster area tonight, not only because of the flooding, but from the storm damage earlier. Emergency workers are calling it the worst storm in the history of this area. Heavy winds and rain knocked down trees and power lines, leaving about 20,000 residents with no electricity. Some sought shelter in area churches.
The basement's flooded, the sanctuary is flooded, and the fellowship hall is flooded. It is almost up to the pews.
I've been a volunteer firefighter here for probably 29 years, and I've never known of us having this kind of weather, most especially flooding.
More than 100 roads and bridges need repair. They say the cleanup effort depends on when the Tallapoosa River returns to its banks.
As far as we know, the only death from the flooding is that of a Troup County woman. Police say a man and his wife drove into a stream that had washed out Leisure Cove Circle Road. The couple's car was washed downstream by the water. The man survived, but his wife's body was found 8 miles away. Kurt's been keeping his eye on the water levels all night long.
We're going to check in with him right now.
Things seem to be going pretty much according to previous reports. We'll start out by looking at the flood warnings that remain in effect. Notice that Randolph County, Alabama no longer is under one of these warnings, but most counties close to the Chattahoochee River all the way down to Stewart County are under these warnings right on through tonight and into tomorrow. So the latest data we have at West Point, it looks like the crest will be 24.3 feet around 2 a.m. and will take until 6 p.m. Saturday to actually fall back below that flood stage, which is 19 feet. Now for Columbus, the crest will be now, they say, 37.5 feet between 2 and 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then we'll probably fall below that 34-foot flood stage by 9 o'clock tomorrow evening. So pretty much during the day tomorrow, it is going to remain at least a little bit above flood stage, and all those estimates now are barring any additional outflow that does occur from any of the dams upstream along the river. Right now it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and that's about the worst case scenario that we have. So keep that in mind right on through tomorrow. We will be peaking, but we're not there yet. Your complete weather forecast is coming up.
Okay,
thanks Kurt.
Officials have closed some parts of Interstate 85 as well as other roads and bridges. I-85 northbound is closed at the Georgia-Alabama line.
Traffic is being rerouted. Follow the signs from exit 62 in Opelika to US 280 to J.R. Allen Parkway in Phoenix City, then to Interstate 185 in Columbus and back to I-85 near LaGrange.
There are some signs out there now. Other roads in Meriwether and Troup counties have been closed. We're going to have those road closings throughout this newscast.
Now, the only ones benefiting from all of this may be Troup County school children. They won't be going to school tomorrow. All Troup County public schools will be closed. We'll have more local flooding coverage later in this newscast, but first, some of the other news of the day.
Now, we aren't the only ones dealing with this bad weather tonight. 118 people were injured, 20 critically when a tornado swept across Oklahoma City. The twister flattened dozens of homes and businesses, scattered cars, and knocked out power to thousands of homes. Now, so far, no reports of any deaths. I think that's the latest on that. This is the third time in a week tornadoes cut a destructive.
And then back onto US 280 west to Opelika. The Alabama Highway Patrol is taking the same route for the northbound traffic.
Now, according to the State Patrol, that's the only section of I-85 that is closed.
Roads aren't the only things being affected tomorrow. Schools may be forced to close their doors. All Troup County schools are closed tomorrow. Wanda Peterson of West Georgia Christian Academy in LaGrange tells us that school will be closed. That school will be closed as well. Now, News 3 will continue to follow local water levels and will alert you to any additional flooding. At this point, rivers and streams are peaking and flood stages are being tracked. Now, still ahead, it's a new day in Georgia. A new flag, Phil, is flying.
But the problem is the new red, white, and blue hoisted in some skies, but is it over Columbus?
And no soldier can rest in Baghdad. There's still danger in the streets. We'll have an update of
rain is the one in Troup County happened almost in one day, a 5-hour span. And that's where all the water pools from the Chattahoochee River as well. So we're seeing the flooding kind of like just coming to a head right down there at West Point. And I think over the course of the next few hours are going to be very critical in that part of the state. And then with maybe another day or two of dryness over our atmosphere, we'll be able to subside a little bit of the severity of the flooding that's going on across much of the metro area, and especially those areas hit hard yesterday. Outside right now, and I'll tell you what, we've been outside, it's almost like a sauna bath, right? The humidity's high. And to quote the old saying of that old song, you ain't seen nothing yet, because tomorrow, with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s possible with high humidity, it's going to be quite steamy, quite muggy. South breeze now at 3, and the pressures are 30.06 and rising. Today's high temperature did make it to 83, normal for this time of year 78, and the record high.
Into a very, very deep storm system. Along the way, it will produce more severe weather. They'll have plenty of rain and a lot of wind to go along with it. The trailing front from this is going to kind of get stuck tomorrow, but eventually this will be on the move too, reaching us sometime late on Sunday the way it looks. That'll do a couple of things. Number one, it'll bring back that chance of thunderstorms by late Sunday, and also by the time we get to Monday,